Hello, and welcome to a new video in the Java Basics course brought to you by the Future Programmer YouTube channel. Today's video is all about while loops in Java, which is a very important concept in computer programming. Without further ado, let's get started. Firstly, what are loops and what can they do? Well, let's think about us, humans, because many things in programming often represent things that we as humans do in our own lives. In life, we often do things repetitively, so we do something multiple times or continuously. In these two examples, we can see while I have homework left, I will continue to do them repetitively. I will continue to program repeatedly while I have free time left. So in programming, these two scenarios can be modeled by loops, which allow us to basically run some code multiple times. Today, we will talk about a specific type of loop called while loops. As the name suggests, while loops continue to run while a condition is true. What are some examples you can think about that in your life which can be represented by a while loop? Even things as simple as counting upward from 1 to 3 can be represented by a while loop. So while the condition of I haven't met 3 yet, in counting, if that is true, I will continue to count upward from 1. Below is the syntax of a while loop in Java. So we write while, and then we put a pair of parentheses inside of which we put a condition. After that, we put a pair of square brackets inside of which we put some code. So while this condition is the Boolean value of true when evaluated, we will continue to run this code repeatedly. Here is an example of while loops in action. So we have an int variable called I, which assigns the initial value of 1, while this variable is less than or equal to 3, we will first print out I and then I++. So we will increment I by 1. This is equivalent to I plus equal 1, which is basically adding 1 to I. So if I was 1, now it's 2. Let's take a look at the output when I run this program. We should see 1, 2, and 3 when I run this program. So 1, 2, and 3. What happened was I is firstly 1. And then we take a look at this loop. Is 1 less than or equal to 3? That is true. So we do these two things. We first print out I, which is 1, and then we add 1 to I. So I is now equal to 2. And then we go back to the top of the loop and check the condition. Is I, which is 2, is this less than 3 or less than or equal to 3? 2 is less than or equal to 3, so we continue to run this loop. We first print out I, which is 2, and then we add 1 to 2. So I is now equal to 3. 3 is still less than or equal to 3, so we print out 3 and add 1 to 3. So now I is equal to 4. Is 4 less than or equal to 3? Well, that is false. So this time, we won't be running this 2 lines of code. So the program basically goes to the next part of our code, and since we don't have anything after that, the program ends. What if we remove the I++ part altogether? This will result in an infinite loop that will never end. So if I just delete line 6 here and run, we'll see 1 printed out continuously. It will never end. To stop this program, I can simply press Ctrl+C, which usually exits this program. But it's always a good idea to make sure you have some way to exit the while loop through the condition here. There is a variation of the while loop called the do while loop. Whereas while loops check the condition first before entering the loop, a do while loop runs the code in the loop first once before checking the condition, and then it continues when that condition is true. So a do while loop basically run at least once. Here we can see the syntax of a do while loop. So do these things while the condition is true. So instead of putting the code after the condition, we first write the code and then we put while condition. In this program, we have an int variable called I equal to 10. We will do these things while this is true. We will print out I and then decrement I by 1. So if I was 10, now it's going to be 9. The condition is I is greater than 10. Copying this into our code editor, we should see 10 as the output. And we will see 10 is indeed printed out right here. What happened was I is equal to 10. And then we will do these things. So we'll print out I, which is 10. So that's going to be printed out. And then I is going to be decremented. So now I is equal to 9. Only after these two lines are run, Java is going to check the condition. Is I greater than 10? No, 9 is not greater than 10. So the program won't continue after that. But let's also think about how this is different from a normal while loop. 10 here is actually not greater than 10. But even though this condition is never true in this entire program, we run this code because this is a do while loop. So we do these things first before checking the condition. To practice what we learned today, let's improve a program that we wrote in the last video when we learned about conditional statements. We can actually combine loops and conditional statements to make better programs. Last lesson, we talked about a program to determine whether a number is even or odd, but that only runs once. Now you know about while loops, improve that program by allowing user inputs and also putting the code in a while loop so the code runs multiple times. After you try that out on your own, we'll show you the answer below. So here is a possible solution to this problem. So at the top of the file, we will write import java.util.scanner. That is going to import the scanner class, which we'll use to get user input. In the main method of our class, we will first make a scanner object sc, which is a new scanner system.in. This is the same thing as we always do when making a scanner object. And then this line is going to make, firstly, an int variable I, which is assigned the initial value 0. It will also make a variable num, which is also an int, but it will only declare it. So it's not going to give it any value. It's just going to make this variable. I is going to be used to make sure that we have our program end at some point. So in this case, the condition is I is less than 3 and I++ after every single time the loop runs. Num is going to be the number that the user inputs. So in the loop, while I is less than 3, we will first ask for a number, enter a number. After the user has entered a number, that's going to be put inside of a variable called num. So sc.nextInt is going to collect that number and put it inside num. This part of the program is similar to what we wrote last time. So if num modulus 2 is equal to 0, so if the division by 2 has a remainder of 0, we will print out that number is even, otherwise, so else, we will print out num is odd. And then we will increment I by 1, so that eventually I will be greater than 3, or equal to 3 actually, so the loop ends. So let's copy this code into our program. Firstly, the import statement, and then the main part of our program. So running this code, we should see Java is going to ask us to enter a number. I'm going to enter, let's say, 5. And it would say 5 is odd. And then I can enter, say, 18. And it should say 18 is even. Let's try negative 57. And it will tell us negative 57 is odd. And now you can see the program has ended because I is now equal to 3. So the loop is not going to run this time. Loops are an essential part of control flow, which is an important part of programming. And now that you have learned the while loop, as well as its variation, the do while loop, in the next lesson of this chapter, we will be talking about another important type of loops, which is the for loop. These will be very helpful to you as you write more complex programs. And there you have it, while loops in Java programming. If you enjoyed this video and learned something today, please consider subscribing to this channel down below. And with that said, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in another video.